Howdy.
Right. So, David, what all we got on the agenda for today? I believe we have some endless summer quarterly issues to discuss.
Yes, well, lead the way. I've been doing it for so long. I would, if you left it to me, God knows where I would start. So,
Hey, we all need some chaos in our videos. It's okay. So this is, of course, the most recent issue. So I guess we'll start off as soon as I got this. I flipped to one page in particular. I wanted to see the review of We Got a Groove. So
okay.
did a great write-up on We Got a Groove. I like your 20 big ones track list. I like all the stuff you have about going through the liner. Oh, and I haven't got mine yet. Mine's still in the mail at this point, but beautiful. So David, talk to me. We Got a Groove.
Well, the thing that I wrote that just immediately, is that the puzzle?
Yep, that's the puzzle.
Okay, my buddy Steve Lewis got it too, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Steve and I both agree the puzzle pieces are real chintzy. They don't stay together real well.
Uh-oh.
So,
Uh-oh.
but it is a cool design though.
Better send a you'd better send a letter to the office of the Beach Boys. Um,
Cool.
so the thing, and I've only had this not even quite a week now. What I was sent in late December was the digital music, which is basically CDs one, two, and three, and the PDF of the booklet that comes inside. And I guess I can hold that up for everybody. Let me see here. I'll, I'll get it. And I think I will.
Is it like Feel Flows where it never wants to go back in the package? I have
Well,
that trouble.
no, it's
There we
not too
go.
horrible. So this
Okay,
is
good.
that's the cover of the booklet. So this is what I had to look at on my computer screen. Was this and the interior notes and everything, and I was able to listen to the music. So that's I didn't see the product shot, which was the cover and then the three different LPs, and then the the three CDs and their own thing. So the cover of the one LP is of course just Love You is reproduced. The second one is the Adult Child album, which is a Brian, our buddy Brian here. And this, I like this shot of the guys on the back too. It's a great shot of the guys.
A good picture.
And okay, so this is the CDs. This is the CD container,
Hmm.
and then there's a shot of the studio from the street in the back there. So that's nice. And then this tells you everything that's on the three CDs, which is everything that's on the three LPs and more. Um, I'm not even going to talk about this photo. I don't know what happened. I don't know who they put in control of the photo. But you can't quite see it here, but it says the Beach Boys. It's just kind of silhouetted over the black.
Oh.
So
Hmm.
it's right in here. It's so light. It's not showing up on the camera, but it's really cool. I like it. It's a nice subtle touch um, to go with the set. And then of course the other LP is the 15 Big One Sessions and More, outtakes and alternate mixes, which is this one. And I like this. I like this LP a lot. So so now that I've shown you these different product elements and explained what I listened to for the sake of the review, because again, listening, I didn't have all the product shots. I had the PDF of the booklet. I had the music, and I think that served me well because this is not my favorite period. Um, the Love You album and 15 Big Ones and the adult child material, and I have the adult child material. That material has always been kind of, it's not that I don't like it because I tend to like something about everything. It's just kind of an outlier to me. Like I knew it was a part of the thing, but I don't know how many fans feel this way, but I've often kind of felt like their career is like chapters themselves or different intervals of types of music. So you have the early 60s, which are the car, the surfing, and the girls. And then Brian was secretly becoming more and more sophisticated with his vocal, his arrangements. And then all of a sudden we have the Today album and Summer Days, which are cleverly disguised as pop records, but are actually more sophisticated. And then we have the party album, which is I would tell anyone, if you're interested in the party album, if you're a collector, that's one thing, you can buy the original record. But thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Saw
That is
it
the
coming.
one you want, right there. That's the one you want to seek out. That's the one you want to buy. And the reason is because it's the majority of the sessions that take place over a couple of weeks. And it really it's got the detail of when Dean Torrance was in the studio. It's not as though Dean just walked in and they recorded Barbara Ann and he walked out. By listening to this, you know better. You know he's there for a number of songs. They eventually get to Barbara Ann, and then he leaves. So I just love this. Mark Lynette and Alan Boyd just did an absolutely 100% home run. That is one of my favorite releases right there, because it's very much like Let It Be Naked. It's that real fly on the wall experience where you're just listening with Bruce, because again, he wasn't allowed to be on the cover, so you don't. If you're just somebody from the peripheral general public and you look at the Beach Boys party album cover, or you look at the Summer Days album cover, you don't even have this idea that there was a sixth guy. And thanks to this release, you get to hear Bruce in the studio with them, interacting, and I just love it. I think it's one of the most integral and important parts of their early careers, that if you want to listen to anything and understand who the Beach Boys were, as much as studio musicians and as performance artists, that is the collection to have, because you get to hear them in the studio recording this unplugged record. But because of how good they are, you get a sense of how far they'd come since, just from a few years before, to who they were as performance artists, even though they were just in the studio environment. You got a sense of how good they were, because they could just mention a song and just go right into it. And
Absolutely.
And on the third layer, God, I'm glad you have that. And on the third layer of this, the best thing about that record is the music that they liked and what they were listening to at the time. If you could scrounge around and maybe find an interview in Teen Magazine or something, you might know. But by getting this collection that Alex is holding, you know what they liked, because they talk about the songs that they like, and they end up playing some of the songs that they like. So it's Bob Dylan, and it's a little bit of Rolling Stones. It's
Coasters.
What's that?
The Coasters.
Yes, I mean, it's more than what you just would generally read about who they liked and what they grew up listening to and stuff like that. Because that stuff is there. I mean, it's the Everly Brothers are in there, all that stuff. But it's so much more. That is one of the best collections to come out of the Beach Boys catalog in the last 11 years, because I think that came out in 2015.
Yeah, 2015 was for the 50th anniversary of Party. I still say some of the best stuff they recorded for the Party is on here. They didn't use it for the ultimate album at the end.
I don't know what. So that's a great segue. So then you go from that to Pet Sounds. You go from Pets, which everybody know, which most people know, and then you go from Pet Sounds to, Alex has got Smile there over his left shoulder.
Yep. There's a Pet Sounds set.
There's the Smile album, which was initially shelved in May of '67. And you're gonna have that's another day and for another time to get into Smile. But the music continued to progress, and it wasn't until then they had Smiley Smile, then they had Wild Honey, and by the time you get to Smiley Smiled and Wild Honey, you have different types of music. And it's not, and if anyone's really paying attention, Brian was never really shifting gears, and I'm not trying to make a car metaphor here. He wasn't doing anything on purpose. He was following his muse. That's all Brian ever did. All Brian ever did, and which is going to perfectly lead to the We Got a Groove box set. All Brian ever did musically is followed his muse. A lot of times his mood would dictate what would come out of him. An idea from his brothers or his cousin or his friend would inspire a direction. But he just followed his muse. So that's why on Smiley Smile, you have a record where he got tired of the sophistication of trying to figure out what Smile was going to be. put Smile on the shelf, not because it was anybody's fault or because of drug use or anything else. That you what I could come in over here and have a whole discussion on a layer of reasons it got shelved. On the other hand, I can come in over here and say the simple fact that it just got put on the shelf because Brian didn't know how to finish it is okay. It's okay. That's what happened. It didn't, all the different reasons, and there are many, there are a myriad of them. He put it on the shelf. He went to Smiley Smile. His father had bought him that Baldwin organ that he plays throughout. So Murray is kind of present on the Smiley Smile album in an odd way. And then Wild Honey becomes its own thing because by that time, they're all coming over to Brian's house and jamming and it's like Wild Honey is kind of Party Album Part 2, except that it's mostly originals. They do a couple of cover songs, but it's very much like Party Album Part 2 because it's just them jamming. Now, Friends was Brian's last, so we're getting into a whole territory here. Friends was Brian's last true production effort in the 60s. He went in, he really focused on the recordings, really worked at producing the recordings. And when the album did not do well, it kind of, and again, he wasn't going in and writing anything in particular to be a hit record. He was going in and following his muse. He was writing to what his sensibilities were at the time, period. So that's what he did. And I think it's a glorious album, but it wasn't received commercially. So in fact, even though there's these great jazz influences, the influence of Burt Bacharach can be felt throughout the record. And Carlos Joe Beam can be felt. But it didn't do well. So that kind of left Brian wondering, well, what is it that I'm supposed to do? And that kind of, I wouldn't say it crushed him, but it left him doubting himself enough. And lo and behold, within 1 month, Mike and Brian, if they just waited 1 month or even weeks, Do It Again would have ended up on the record.
There you go.
And I think it would have altered the course of the Friends album had they put Do It Again on that record, because it became a very successful single following the Friends album. And then it would end up on the 2020 album, which is where Brian began to just kind of, I wouldn't say pull away, just less active. He's not even on the cover of the photo shoot. He's inside holding the eye chart.
Yep, the eye chart thing, yeah.
But so he just kind of needed a break. When you think about the fact that in 4 years, the Beach Boys released 12 albums, 2 of which were released 3 weeks apart from one another. Okay. I think it was in 63. I think it was Little Deuce Coupe and it's Little Deuce Coupe and something else, and I'm blanking for some reason. But anyways, 12 albums in 4 years, and that's leading up to Pet Sounds. So the demand from Capitol Records just didn't stop, and he just needed a break. Anybody would have needed a break.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so
you mentioned,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, with Friends, I wonder if it hurt him how much Mike and the others disparaged it in the live set. If you listen to those live 1968 shows, calling Friends a bomb, talking about how, you should rush out bikes.
That was post reception. And Brian wasn't with them on the road. So
that's true.
So unless Carl's calling Brian right after the show and saying, Mike's calling it a bomb, which I doubt happened. I don't think that would have been I think that when you listen to those types of things in the live performances where Mike's saying something like that, I think what I hear is a guy who's maybe embarrassed, not by the music, but by the result of the music. I don't think Mike wrote Annalie the Healer. He came back from a really important trip in his life, that ended up where the Beatles were there. He didn't know that until he got there. So I just think I think this is Mike being uncomfortable and not really and the group kind of not musically being uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable with how they're supposed to be presenting themselves.
Mm.
Because by that time they're not wearing the striped shirts anymore. They're trying to adapt to what they think the public wants. I mean, if Mike was so down on the album, he sure as heck wouldn't have recommended the Maharishi open the sets for him. I mean, if he was, so I don't think Mike was musically down on that material. I think Mike is, having interviewed him in the 2018 ESQ about the Friends album, he's a big proponent of that stuff. So
Good.
I just think it's the Beach Boys themselves trying to come to terms with what just happened. And of course it wasn't an overnight thing, but between 67, all they were at the top of their game, number one hit with Good Vibrations. All of a sudden, within a year's time, they become almost completely unimportant. And it's not because their music sucked. It's because the newer music coming in from the Doors and Cream and all these other groups were so interesting and different that and I guess I'll use the word progressive in a way that the buying public wasn't used to, that they started to listen to different form of music. So by the late 60s, which is where we are, FM radio is beginning to take over and the LP format is beginning to take shape, where DJs in FM radio stations are just putting on the whole record. And that is actually plays into one of my favorite groups of the Moody Blues, and they came out with Days of Future Past in 1967, which is a day in the life of a guy. It starts and it's the morning, it ends with Nights in White Satin. And so you have this album format of this concept, right? So that slowly became more and more and more. And even though the Beatles never truly did a concept album, I would say Abbey Road is just definitely one of the most pleasurable albums that you could put on and listen to from beginning to end, as is most of anything by Pink Floyd. So it was changing. And when you're out on tour, the Beach Boys had a rare situation. When Brian expressed to them that he didn't want to tour anymore, which is late 64, going into 65. They got Glenn Campbell to fill in. I mean, gosh, now we're getting into the whole deep history here. But the bottom line was that they didn't quite understand what was happening, because it was really essentially the Beatles and the Beach Boys at the top of the charts. Whatever the two of those two groups were doing, everybody followed. And when you're in front of everybody, and you're creating and you're doing something like we're going to use Pet Sounds as the example, and or Good Vibrations, the single, as the example, that when you're creating something and you're doing it and you're not doing it on purpose, you're right. Brian, when he was working on Pet Sounds, wasn't saying, now he heard Rubber Soul. He said, I want to make an album that good. I know that. But I don't think at any time he was thinking, I'm going to make the greatest record of all time ever heard, and it's going to have hit after hit after. He didn't think that way. What was important to him is making music that mattered. And so Friends mattered to Brian just as much as Pet Sounds mattered to Brian. And later, Love You. I like it. It was the music that mattered. It wasn't, ideally, from those around Brian, the ideal scenario would be something that Brian would create would then become a hit. But Brian did not think that way. He, I think I've used this term before, and I think it really applies to him. I think Brian Wilson was an accidental tourist in his own world. I think he struck gold because he was so good at what he did. He was just so good at what he did. And because of his brothers, particularly the middle brother, Dennis, who he could just look up and see, oh, there goes Dennis running, driving off quick in his hot rod, or there goes Dennis going to surf, and oh, there goes Dennis with several girls. I mean, the brother was all he needed to for subject matter. I mean, everything Dennis was doing was a subject matter. And then if you go back a few years to the beginning, the innocence that every boy experiences, teenage years, going to high school, to college, all those things that they made relatable through music was through Mike or Roger Christian or Gary Usher, because they're all guys. That's what they have in common. They all have these pastimes. And it's cool that they went to a hamburger stand and they never made it specifically Foster Freeze, right? They could have. They could have written about Foster Freeze, but they didn't. They made it, well, let's just call it fun, 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 and we'll write about the hamburger. We'll include something about the hamburger stand now, and we'll leave it at that. We're not going to say where. That way it can be, and again, we're assuming they put that much thought into it. they probably did not. Because I think it's a combination of, when Brian died, I did a local telecast here on the NBC affiliate, and I kept thinking about how lucky Brian was, because he ended up with the Wrecking Crew members in the studio to work with. He had these, and it turned out his brothers and his cousin and his friend turned into great singers under Brian's direction, and how lucky he was to have those voices. But I think that's twofold, because how lucky could you get to be working with Brian Wilson? I mean, but again, I don't ever think the gift that he inherently got, that he attributed to God, that gift, I never got the impression in any of the interviews he's ever done, ever, that he thought he was something, like he was the cat's pajamas, and that he was going to do this, this, and this. He didn't do it that way. It was more about how the music conveyed. What could he convey with what he was feeling? And as he got older and more mature, and by the mid-60s, he was figuring out a way to convey it meaningfully. On those early records, you got it in little increments, like that little magic, for the most part, it was sing-along songs. But when you hear a song like Lonely Sea, that's a song, and I recommend anybody seek this out. So the movie The Girls on the Beach is horrible, campy film. It's a horrible, campy film. It's a film. The Beach Boys are at the beginning, and they make an appearance in the middle. And it's a film about, I guess they're college or high school. I can't even remember.
Something. I've seen parts of it.
They're trying to find the Beatles. And it's like, why couldn't they have been trying to find the Beach Boys? The Beach Boys are in the film.
They're right there. I don't know.
They're right there. What the heck? But there's a scene that is just so perfect. It's perfect in every way. They do a nighttime shot down on the beach with the waves in the background, with the ocean in the background, and Brian is just sitting there singing Lonely Sea around a fire with others. And it is just the most serene and beautiful and breathtaking and dark. And I don't mean because it was at night. I mean, this is a precursor to Till I Die. So they're this deep, emotive guy who is finding his way through the musical landscape. And that's all Brian has ever done. And so, and I love this early stuff. You can tell because I'm talking so much about it. So the Smile stuff tends to be my favorite. Evanescence is my favorite Beach Boys song. I feel like I'm listening to a history painting every time a painting that's a history lesson every time I listen to it. It's just, I think it's a incredible, right. Yeah, everything from Smile to me is just an incredible, even if it's not finished, even if it's a piece of something, I just think it's the fact that the guy was doing it with the technology of the day, and he was able to, along with Van Dyke Parks, were able to create this Americana. I just wish it had been finished at the time, because I just think it would have blown everybody's mind and changed the course of music history forever. It just like Sgt. Pepper did. because
Yeah.
it would have come out at roughly the same time as Sergeant Pepper. It would have, I mean, the musical world was waiting for something like Pepper, and that's why Pepper changed it. And Smile would have done the exact same thing. Even if Pepper came first, it wouldn't have mattered. It would not have mattered. And I think that was another thing that kind of got stuck in Brian's kind of a bee in Brian's bonnet. When Pepper came out, it just kind of made him feel like he's, oh gosh, I can't compete with that, which is like bananas, because it's like, dude, if you finish Smile, you're going to put Pepper to shame. You know,
Absolutely. Do you think the audiences at the time would have latched on to Smile?
I think so. That's an interesting question, because you had your audience, the Beach Boys had their audience, and this is true with the Beatles too, and really any group at the time that was getting more and more progressive in their and sophisticated in their sound. So you had albums like, again, we'll use Summer Days as the example. You had an album that uh, presented itself to be kind of a summery, good time thing, and it was, for the most part. That's exactly kind of what it was. And you have Help Me Rhonda, you have California Girls, you have Salt Lake
Lake
City,
City.
the groovy song. There's a number of songs, and of course, then you have a couple of those beautiful ballads by Brian that he sprinkles in there. So it was a turning point. Brian heard music changing. He was very well aware of the Beatles, which is why you have, which is the song on there? I'm blanking. Which is the song?
Girl Don't Tell Me, maybe?
Yes, the one
Okay.
the one that Carl sings.
Yeah, Girl Don't Tell Me.
Yeah,
It's kind of
which is
Ticket
a
to
nod.
Ride-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a nod to the Beatles. He says, well, Brian kind of comes in and says, I can do the Beatles. Here, done.
Yeah.
So, when there was very little that Brian was listening to that affected him in a way that he went, uh-oh. He only did that. The Beatles were only the real group to kind of get his attention in that way. And it was like, oh, we just got to work harder. We just got to, we just got to put our better foot forward. And I think that drove Brian's sophistication, because he was picking up what they were doing. And he was one of the people who could hear what they were doing and understand it. That's a whole nother thing. That speaks to Brian's level as a musician. He understood what they were doing. He understood how they're using chord progressions. And he said, oh, I can do Beatles. Here. And
And it worked.
I'll do it one time. Did the Beatles ever do? So the Beatles would then try to do, they would try to do the Beach Boys with Here, There, and Everywhere, and For No One.
Back in the USSR.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. The more of the pop idiom. But to kind of the harmonic idiom, that to kind of tries the harmonic arrangements, you hear that on Here, There, and Everywhere, and For No One on the Revolver album, after Bruce Johnston had taken the Pet Sounds album to London and played the record for John and Paul. So Brian just was never, it was always, what is he feeling in the moment? What's the instrument that he has in front of him, which would typically be an organ or a piano of some sort, or a Baldwin organ. He just would, what is the muse? What is happening? What do I feel? What do I play? And that's how his music was created. So when you get to, now going back to my initial statement of the different types of Beach Boys fans that there are, because you get to Wild Honey, that's rhythm and blues. You get to the Friends album, that's kind of back more to the heavy production, Burt Bacharach. But then you go forward. 2020 is an eclectic collection. Then you get the Sunflower, and Sunflower is this great moment in the Beach Boys history, in my opinion. And it's phase, I'm going to call it phase 2, because you could call Smiley Smile phase 2, but this to me is phase 2. This is when the Beach Boys, as a group working out of Brian's house, have come together and are loving one another's company. They're they're really getting, they're professional enough musicians, they can bounce off. And it's, again, because they're at Brian's house, it has kind of a party, it's kind of a party atmosphere. The party atmosphere where they're with one another, they're bouncing ideas off. They got the great engineer Steve Desper, and they create some really beautiful magic. And by this time, Daryl Dragon and Captain and Tennille's a part of the picture. So you get this record, followed by Surf's Up, which is to me, I've always had I like the album, but I've always had mixed feelings about it, because it's weird to me that there had been negotiations that Smile was going to come out in 72 under Warner Brothers label, but yet they went and used Surf's Up here, which I thought was unusual. The same way they used Our Prayer and Evanescence on the 2020 album. And Mama Says on the Honey album. So they were using these little Smile tidbits and putting them out on different records. And so if you're a Beach Boys fan, and God, this is a long conversation to get to We Gotta Groove.
That's all right. I like it.
So you get to Surf's Up, then you get to Holland, and what you hear in this phase two, you hear, again, this isn't about commercial success or anything else. What you're hearing is artistic prose, prose, where they're coming in, they're really, the guys collectively are working more from a lyrical, poetic standpoint and place. Al's borrowing from
Robinson Jeffers.
Yeah. And it's like listening to California Saga is like, it's amazing. It's so majestic is a word that I would use. So by the time Holland is out and comes out, then you have the double record in concert. So then people are like, okay, if a new batch of fans has come in due to Sunflower or the Surf's Up record, because they got a whole bunch of people who bought the Surf's Up record because they heard all about Smile when it was supposed to come out. Then it got shelved. Then Surf's Up. Oh, this is from Smile. Oh, we got to get that record. And then you have Till I Die, which is the other nugget on Surf's Up. Then you get, so people are, and then you hear Holland, and it's like, there's some mixed emotions back then. But for the most part, the artistic, creative level of it, people are appreciating. And this is phase two because Carl Wilson was running the show. And I forgot to mention Carl and the Passions. So Carl Wilson was given Dennis's vote because Dennis was out doing whatever. He didn't care if Carl voted. Carl, you have my vote. Brian just gave Carl the vote. So anything that got voted on, Carl had the vote of 3 people. Al and Mike would vote. Bruce didn't have a vote because he wasn't a shareholder. Yep. He might express an opinion, and they may listen to it or whatever, but he didn't have a share, so he wasn't an important vote in that regard because he wasn't a shareholder. So Carl had 3 votes. And so you all of a sudden you have the group going from Sunflower, and then all of a sudden Surf's Up is this different, not just because of they're using the song, but Carl's Long Promised Road and Field Flows are distinctive, different direction material. Big time FM radio music, big time FM music, great recordings, great songs. And then you have Carl and the Passions, and it's again great. It's almost like Wild Honey Part 2, but more. It's like Wild Honey and part of Holland. It's so different, but it's cool. If you understand what it is, it's cool. Now, it doesn't make any sense to me there's only 8 tracks on it. It doesn't make any sense to me that they had to parrot and release it with pet sounds. It makes no sense.
That I don't know. But they are longer songs, so it might be why there's only 8.
But that's what they did. Out in the Country should have been on that record. There was room for it. So that's a nod to Don Goldberg. So, yep. So again, here you have, then you get to Holland. There's this suite at the end of the California Saga, this whole thing, the in-concert album. And then the fans are thinking, what's next from these guys? So now if you have this second generation of fans who are just fans of these early 70 records, because they're different. Yeah, that's right. And that's what comes next.
We
That's
got
what
endless
comes next.
summer.
And that's what you have to understand. The public, not the group. Okay? This is a distinction here. The public, not the Beach Boys themselves. This happens. Capitol Records comes up with another greatest hits package. They're just going to call it Beach Boys Greatest Hits. Who knows what they're going to call? But Mike Love says, well, let's call it something different. So it's not just another greatest hits package. Let's call it Endless Summer. So that's where the name comes from. And I think it was not long after Bruce Brown's movie. So that probably played a part in Mike's brain.
Probably, yeah.
It's a great name. It ends up doing great. It leads to them beginning to sell out in concerts again. They did an incredible, successful tour with Chicago, which Billy Hinchy then called Beachago. And then Spirit of America follows in 75. They have two great selling hit albums. And so what do you do? So the Beach Boys, and so we're going to back up a little because this is important, man. Folks, I promise we're eventually going to get here. It's 3 hours later. So
Be
what
worth the
happens
wait.
next is the Beach Boys can't figure out why they're not filling. So this goes back to the in-concert era. They can't figure out why they're not filling up stadiums. They know that they need to change their direction so that they can fill. So they start to play smaller venues. They're like, what can we do to change this? The group takes a vote. And I know this because Jim Gershow told me this himself. So I know this. The group took a vote. Dennis says, I'll go up and visit Jim in Caribou. Because the group decided they needed to get someone's advice on what to do so that they could change their projectile of not selling out shows. So Dennis goes up, meets with Jim Gershow. He explains the situation to him. He says, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to give you any advice. I have to come back and see some of your shows, see what you're doing, and then I'll make some suggestions. He comes back, he sees some shows. He says, first of all, you got to get rid of the medleys. You got to get rid of the car medley, the surf medley. You got to get rid of them and play those songs in their entirety. That's the first thing you got to do. And this all aligns with the Endless Summer and the Spirit of America albums. So while they're getting this advice, and then Jim Gershow ends up becoming their tour manager, he's often pictured in photos of that era on stage with them playing bass. He changed the course of their careers by telling them to play the hit records. So folks, this is important to understand so you can get off of if you're one of those people who is stuck on the Mike Love, because he named the Endless Summer album, is responsible for the hit machine and playing the jukebox. No. The group voted in favor of Dennis going to see Jim Gershow. Jim Gershow comes back. He watches them do some shows. He says, you have to change what you're doing. It's not Mike Love. It's the entire group being in favor of Jim Gershow telling them what to do. So that to me is a very important factual element of what took place in their careers. And then after Spirit of America, what do? Well, they recognize, as a group, well, there's not a day that goes by in this whole period where they're not hoping Brian's going to come back. That's number one. They're always hoping Brian's going to come back. You think Brian will come out? Just always. That was never from their minds. There was not a day that went by where they thought, maybe Brian will come back. I wonder if we can get him in the studio. Always. So because of the success that they had with the Endless Summer and the Spirit of America, they recognized that people wanted to hear all those oldies that came from the original catalog. So what do? Well, we had success with Surfing USA and Chuck Berry's song. Why don't we record rock and roll music?
There you go.
Boom. And they come up with another original, It's Okay, which I think is a wonderful song. And I agree with Mike Love when he says that had both rock and roll music and It's Okay been released at the beginning of that summer, because rock and roll music did quite well on the charts. It's Okay was released until the fall. And had they like done June and July releases, I think it would have served that album really, really well. And the album did quite well. So
Yeah.
and look at them. They're not anything special to look at on the front of that cover. They all look rather
It's a very posed
yes.
photo.
I mean Dennis looks good, but I mean but I can remember with Mike doing an interview about this record, and he has the record in front of him, and he goes, "Isn't that something? We all had beards." It's just, it just
Yeah,
that's the
it
thing he
is.
notices, and it's interesting. It's an Olympic year, and look at that. Um,
Yep.
that's a Dean Torrance design. So, but then again, this all tied together. This is one of those kind of the stars aligned. Brian wasn't, in quote, back as the public would be campaigned to believe not long after this, but he was in the studio again. And this is a perfect transition to the We Got a Group box set, because we get to hear some 15 Big Ones outtakes. And I think one of the things, so I think my take that was included in the e-blast that went out last week to Beach Boys fans mailings list is my quote from Endless Summer Quarterly that was in there was fascinating and quintessential, a box set for others to be measured by. And again, I've listened to the Love You album plenty of times. I wish, and I like Dean's a buddy, but the Love You album art just never really did anything for me.
I do have the blanket. You might be able to see it behind me
Oh
on my
yeah, you
bed
sure
here,
do.
but
So
yeah.
this I like. I wish this had been but now maybe it wouldn't be so special now if this had been the original Love You album cover. I would have really liked this if it had been the original album Love You album cover. At any rate, so I put it because I'm listening to this music, writing the review from just a digital download. So I'm just listening, I don't have a physical disc in front of me. So I'm just listening. So I don't have this, right? I don't have this record out. It's not like I'm looking at it or anything. I'm just listening and looking at the PDF booklet. So the first thing that got me was they included the sessionography from Craig Slowinski, Jocelyn Hoisington, John Brody, and Will's name I'm going to mess up. That's why I left it for last. But it's Will Scherer, I guess. I don't quite know how to. It's
Not sure.
CRAR. And that team does such a great job. And I was so glad to see the sessionography notes in the booklet because I'm about to turn 61. I grew up on book and records. And that's not a secret. I tell everybody that. So that's why I do a lot of my ESQs the way that I do them, because I like the idea of if I send somebody a magazine, they'll put on the record and be able to read along and get into the music. Maybe it'll get them into the music more, or if they don't have the record, then they would want to buy the music. So I love that the sessionography is in here because I feel it's integral to any listening experience. So I think that was huge. That was huge when I saw that. That was the first thing. The second thing was because I didn't have to get out the physical Love You album. And I was just listening. And it went from those cuts into the bonus cuts on CD1. All of a sudden I was hearing these outtakes, alternate versions, and then it ends with You've Lost That Love and Feeling. I just thought, oh my gosh, it gave the whole listening experience a different feeling. It was almost like I was listening to, so then I get to disc 2, and that, of course, this is Adult Child. And then I listened to those tracks, and I'm familiar with them all, but they just sound so great. And then there's the instrumental, just the instrumental versions of the stuff that Brian did with Dick Reynolds, and that's really great to listen to. And then alternate cuts and songs like Marilyn Rovell, just these weird outtakes of things that I have, but they just don't sound this good. And so the mixing on everything just sounds real good. And I'm not a guy who has ever really got into mixes. So I'm not going to tell you this mix is better than some other mix or anything like that, because that's not my bag. If it just sounds good, like bootlegs typically have
Gotcha.
some form of hiss to them or something like that. They're not great quality, and this is just great quality. Um, so again, and so then when I get to disc three, and again, I'm just listening continuously. It's not disc one, disc two, three. It's just one long
Yeah.
experience. And
Playlist.
all of a sudden, I'm listening to 15 Big One outtakes and stuff, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is 20 big ones, which is why I did the sidebar in the magazine. It's like, oh, this is finally 20. This is 20 oldies. This is great. Honeycomb with Marilyn, Wilson, Rutherford, her to be on there with, and she's on a track from the Love You album. Let's Put Our Hearts Together, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I thought, okay, this is cool. So again, it felt like one long thing. It felt, although yes, and that's the other thing that I want to touch on. We as the buying public, we think, like Al Jardine will tell you, he thinks Good Vibrations was finished. It should be on Pet Sounds. He said that many times to many people. But the buying public doesn't know it that way. So the buying public knows what they go and they purchase and what they have. So when people bought this record in 77, this is what they knew and this is what they had. If they bought the 15 Big Ones album, that's what they knew and that's what they had. They didn't know about all the sessions. They didn't know about what songs were put left off, or why they were left off, or why a song from a Sunflower session would be brought back and used, like Good Time.
Yeah.
They didn't know any of that or why. And a lot of the times now I listen to this stuff, I haven't really had the collected desire to listen to this period ever before, but now I do. So I have the We Gotta Groove box set to thank for that. And again, because it's gathered in one place, I feel kind of in a way, it's almost like Universal Records and the team that put this box set together have created kind of because they call it the Beach Boys Brothers Studio. I wish they'd just been called Brothers Studio, but maybe that was too generic. I don't know. But the Brothers Studio years, I feel like this is a really cool thing. Like I think I wrote it in a review. I feel like it's almost as though they've opened the door, put a rock on the door to keep it open, kind of, and said, come on in, listen to this record. And then, we're going to take you into this other room where we have these other cuts that we're going to play for you. So it's almost like going inside and getting a tour of Brother Studio. That's what it sounds like to me.
Well put.
And so that's what I like about it. And everything I've talked to up until this point, the music collected here is no different than anything else we've talked about. It's Brian Wilson and his muse.
I like it. It's very well put. And yeah, and just some of his interesting ideas that he had. I haven't listened to everything from the set yet because mine's
Okay.
still in the mail, but I did cheat and go on YouTube and listen to a few of them.
So
And
there's the last disc is really cool because I think it's roughly 5 tracks that are from a 2-track cassette of Brian.
Yeah. Some of those were in his Ding Dang stores, I remember.
And he's playing them for Mike. And Mike says to one of them, he's playing it, and Mike goes, "That's a motherfucker. Is that going on the album?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "All right." And so I don't, again, I think the public has spent way too much time, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault in particular, but the rhetoric with this group and this was going on and this person was again. Sure, they have their differences, but they're family and they're welcome to those differences. Okay, they're family. And it's best that the rest of us stay out of it. The family, I don't want anybody involved in my family business.
No, I gotcha.
But when you're a musical act, that kind of comes with it because we've seen that play itself out in any group that's a family. Their lives become public, and so I just think we've seen for too long kind of one guy was at one guy, and yeah, they had their disagreements, and they fought like cousins, or they fought like brothers, but they're entitled to that.
Yeah.
They're
No,
cousins and
I
they're
agree.
brothers, and that's just the way it goes. But finally, the last thing I'll say about this set is the home run that it truly is that it's Brian's music, and for the most part, it's Brian's lyrics too. So you
Very
really,
much his brainchild there. Yeah.
yeah, so you really get to see Brian. Uh, and this isn't about. I don't know how to explain this to people. It's Music is such a subjective thing, right? There's sometimes that people just, because I know a lot of fans who just don't care for this period, but I would tell them I love listening to it. I don't know why. Um,
Hmm.
because it's still not the best stuff to me. It's still not the most artistically interesting stuff to me. I'm it's not the easy to please thing, because I am easy to please. I like Summer in Paradise. I like the 85
Hey.
record. I like Still Cruising. But there again, I'm a stick. I don't like the fact that they stuck three oldies. I've got the record too. Yes.
Yep. Love it. Love it. I
Uh,
was so excited when it came out.
so, yeah, I mean, to me that, I don't skip over Summer of Love, but I have every right to. Uh, but I,
Everybody does at some point. I wouldn't worry about it.
but I don't. It's on the album. There's plenty of songs on many of the albums by many groups where I'm like, this one, doesn't do anything for me. But it's a part of the experience. It's a part of the listening experience. And the great thing to me about the Summer in Paradise album is it's Carl Wilson's voice. So, and Strange Things Happen and Alana Aloha are
Hey, there you go.
really, really, and just thinking about Laina Aloha kills me every time I listen to it. Because when I hear Carl Wilson sing, I wanted, but I can't stay.
Yep.
You know,
And
it's
it's even
just it's heavy. It's
it
heavy.
is, and it's even sadder, of course, after the wildfires and stuff that destroyed part of Lahaina and everything. I'm surprised
Oh,
this song didn't become something of an anthem, for the victims of that too. A nice tragic song about leaving Hawaii, kind of coupled with that. It was,
that's an interesting thought.
yeah.
Yeah, that certainly would have been apropos. But so yeah, so I don't we don't want people to get mad at you for showing Summer in Paradise while we're talking about We Got a Groove.
They'll
Uh,
have to deal with it. Oh.
so anyways, I highly recommend this. It's just a fascinating. It's just and I get that probably there's a lot of people who just stream music, but I'm just so old school when it comes to packaging that I just think this cool. Now I am wishful. I do hope that that this will do so well that here in the States they'll put out a 3-disc set, just the CDs, and
Yeah,
for those maybe through Amazon. I'm hopeful because I think it's available in Germany and Japan as CDs.
Japan for sure is all I've heard. But yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm hoping that'll come around, because I know I've seen a lot of comments about that to maybe make it available as a CD. But it's an awesome
Yeah.
set, um, and I'm just a major fan of the 12 by 12 box sets. So I like that they put the CDs in here because, like the Feel Flows, I'm okay with the way they did it, and the Sailor on Sailor, I'm okay with all that because they created the two different things. They have the LPs or the CD selections, and you can get both, and they're in different packaging. But I like it all kind of being in one package. I don't know why. I understand from an expense perspective that if you don't have a turntable, it doesn't make any sense. Then
Yeah.
so there's all sorts of conversations or discussions you can have. But again,
Yeah.
I just will say repeatedly, get this very, I can't even tell you what this material is, but it's cool. It's like a matte finish.
Huh.
It's just cool. It's just this. I wish they had had a little creative fun with this and just done something different.
Reverse the colors or
Or
something. Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know, just done away
Huh.
with it. I'm just
I
not,
don't know.
this just never did anything for me. It still doesn't. But I'm glad it's a part of this because it's and I know the thing that I really appreciate about box sets, going back to the smile, not smile, but you hear it a little bit smile, but the Pet Sounds box set that you held up earlier, that's right there behind me, is we get to hear Brian. When Brian passed away, that was what I listened to because I like hearing his voice. I like hearing him talk and joke. And that's why I think I liked on this new set the cassette stuff where Mike and Brian are talking. It's very brief, but we get it for a second. So I'm a big fan of that. I guess maybe to a degree, maybe that might bore some people. Like if it's a bunch of talking and it's not enough of the music. I don't know, but I
Yeah,
really
I
like
suppose.
I really like hearing the creative process. But that does not take away from this set. This set again, this cover. I mean, it's like you feel like you get. For me, it feels like I'm going inside and getting to sit down on the Brother Studio couch and having, I guess, Howie Edelson play the music for me. Um, you know, that's what it feels like. You're going inside the Brother Studio, and and I don't know if it's whether or not you like this music because I know a lot of people just don't. I know a lot of people who do, and I know a lot of people who don't. But so the people who do have already ordered this, I would hope. And for
Yeah.
those who don't, I'm just going to tell you to go ahead and give it a listen. If nothing else, online first. If you're like on the fence about whether or not you should buy it, but buy it. It's just really a cool set. It's just really a cool set, and it's a chapter in Brian's musical arc that no fan should be without.
All right. Sounds good to me. Yes, I'm very excited to get mine. I know Steve Lewis and I are going to do a joint video when we both get ours and talk about our thoughts on it. But what I've heard so far, just clicking on YouTube, very impressed. And I love this era for the group. I love the late 70s stuff just because it's kind of quirky and kind of different. So I'm excited to get my We Got a Groove too. So thanks for taking us through it all. Now I'm even more excited to get mine.
Whew. That's the longest review. I just did a whole career retrospective.
Hey, if you transcribe that, it could be the next issue of the magazine,
Oh
maybe.
no, 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 no.
Hey, you did a great job, though, David. I gotta say, I liked it. I think our viewers will like it too.
Great.
Yeah.